Greeting everyone. Welcome to this new conference proposed by IEMAC-ICAWS and the Institute for Contemporary African World Studies. The title is The African Renaissance and the New World Order. Our principal theme, is the metaphysical dimension of President Ibrahim Traoré's missions, the fluid network and the emergence of the nation community NCA. While everybody is being contacted by YouTube, let's listen to some African percussion, African drums. The conference will start in a couple of minutes as soon as we reach a certain number of viewers. Good morning. Welcome to this new live conference proposed by IEMAC-ICAWS, the Institute for Contemporary African World Studies. Today we're discussing about the African Renaissance and the New World Order, specifically the metaphysical dimension of President Ibrahim Traoré's missions, fluid network, and the emergence of the nation community, NCA. We are waiting for a couple of more minutes before launching this online conference via YouTube. While waiting, please enjoy the African drums in the background. Let's give ourselves 2 more minutes, and then we start this live conference. While you there, please, can you just type Renaissance? And drop us some art, some stars, whatever you think you can drop to support this initiative. Thank you very much. 1 more minute to go and we start this conference. Thank you. 1 more minute and we will start. Welcome to this conference, this online conference proposed by ICAWS IEMAC, the Institute for Contemporary African World Studies. We are based in the UK and in Ireland, Brussels, in Belgium. We're expanding gradually into the African continent and the diasporas, or what we call the ATOs, the African territories overseas. Well, let's say a few more seconds and we start. Please type Renaissance, type Renaissance in your screen. Also tell us from where are you watching us, which town, which countries are you watching us. Thank you. Well, it's exactly our 5 minutes over. Today is the 13th January 2026 and we are offering you today this conference, the African Renaissance and the New World Order, the metaphysical dimensions of President Ibrahim Traoré missions, fluids, networks, and the emergence of the nation community, NCA. Well, my name is Professor Alphonse Mbeke, the founder of Coafrwology, the new Pan-African science for restoration, order, justice, dignity, renaissance, and the new African world order. Well, the exordium, the awakening of the consciousness. Honorable guests, brothers and sisters, of the contemporary African world, COAFRWO, from the continent and from the African territories overseas, our ATOOS, we open this session under a fundamental truth: entering into consciousness is the first step toward freedom. Today, we are not gathered to merely witness history, but to learn how to forge it. We will decrypt why the current leadership in West Africa, led by President Ibrahim Traoré, is the spark of a global metaphysical transformation that now unites every member of our nation community. Point 2, Ibrahim Traoré, more than a president, a metaphysical mission. What is unfolding within the AES Alliance of Sahel States is not a simple political transition. In Coafrwology, we analyze President Ibrahim Traoré as a renaissance pole. He is the vessel for the metaphysical mission, that of restoration, that is restoring the integrity of the land. His strength does not come solely from military strategies, but from his alignment with ancestral frequency of sovereignty. However, such a mission attracts invisible forces of destabilizations. While this is where metaphysical paths of protections become essential. These are not mere rituals, but a science of vibratory alignment that we must all master to protect this bastion of the Renaissance. 3, the ethos and affective capital, the blood of the nation community. Well, but this protection cannot be limited to the geographical borders of the Sahel. This is where the revolutionary concept of the nation community, the NCA, comes into play. We address especially our brothers and sisters of the ATOS, the African territories overseas, including the Caribbean, the French Antilles, the South America, Europe, whatever you name them. We address indeed the ATOS. You are not expatriates of or descendant. You are the living extensions of the continent. You carry within you an immense affective capital, that loyalty, love, and memory that bind you to the motherland. Coafrwology teaches that this affective capital must be transmuted. It must become a political and economic power. The NCA is this nation within, there is this nation without border, where a brother in Martinique, in Brazil, or London is organically linked to the destiny of the soldier in Ouagadougou or in Bamako. 4, fluid networks, the weapon of strategic support. To support President Traoré leadership and the sovereignty of the AES, we must deploy fluid networks. The adversary uses rigid bureaucratic structures. We use fluidity. Fluid networks are agile, invisible, and ultra-fast connections between the continent and the ETIOS. First of all, the cognitive support. An army of NCA experts to shatter informational warfare. Second, economic support. An army, let's say the economic support, the circulation of effective capital to finance our own project without passing through the bank of the old world. And third, metaphysical support, a collective vibratory vigil that created a shield around our leaders. Fifth, IEMAC-ICAWS, the Institute for Contemporary African World Study, your gateway to the new order. How do you integrate into these networks? How do you understand the science, our Coafrwology? This is the role of the institute, the IEMAC-ICAWS. Our training programs are not abstract. They are not abstract theory. They are the instruction manual for the new African world order. We train NCA cadre in, first of all, mastery of deep geopolitics, activations of metaphysical sovereignty, management of fluid networks, and effective capital. Do not remain on the sideline. Becoming a student at the IEMAC means arming your mind for total liberation. Then, as a sixth point, we call to action. Join Global COAFRWO. Knowledge without organization is a wasted force. This is why we call you up on joining the Global COAFRWO. It is the international organization that structured our nation community. It is the tool that transforms our discussion into sovereign act. Whether you are on the continent or in the ETIOS, your place is ready. Register for IEMAC training to understand the stake. Join the Global COAFRWO to act within the fluid networks. The Africa of tomorrow is being built today through consciousness, through science, and through the unity of the nation community. Let the Renaissance be. Thank you. Thank you for watching and listening this first part of this conference. Now, let's get into deep details. Well, I think for those that are just joining us now, please type Renaissance, join us, please type Renaissance. The title of this conference is The African Renaissance and the New World Order, focusing on the metaphysical dimension of President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso's missions as today the new leader of the Confederation, the AES Confederation. We talking about the fluid networks and the emergence of the nation community NCA. The first point is the exodium, the awakening of consciousness. Well, honorable guests, brothers and sisters of the contemporary African world, Once again, I want to present myself. I'm Professor Alphonse Becker, the founder of Coafrwology, the new science for restoration, justice, order, dignity, renaissance, and the new African world order. Well, the contemporary African world, COAFRWO, emerged from my scientific endeavor through Coafrwology. As a student, as a researcher, while a student here in the UK's, I was puzzled by the fact that while studying, we were exposed to different conception and definition of world, within which we could have the European world, the Asian world, the Indian world, whatever, Middle East world. All these groups constitute themselves as world. But while studying all these words, there wasn't anything as the African world. As a student, I start asking myself, why Africa was not represented as a word, as a world. Africa was represented as a periphery around the European world, as if Africa belonged to the European world. Africa was integrated toward the multiple concepts that were designed to encapsulate African within other world, so African couldn't have a vision of any world to make sense of the global environment within which they exist. African were trapped into one single vision that was leading them into the European world, as if African were part or belong to Europe. Well, we study all this mostly through the big concept of universalism. Universalism purpose was to pretend philosophically to give the entire planet the feeling that everything was going into the best of the beautiful world, while atrocity were conducted into Africa. Africa were enslaved, African were colonized, African was treated the way we know today Africa have been treated. At the same time, well, the world of the, let's say, the clever, the intelligent, or whatever you call them, but was conducting through concept design to completely absorb African, such as universalism. Universalism to mean that, oh, we all into this together, oh, we belong to the same world, oh, we part of everything together, oh, the other one are our enemies. We Africans were in the world of universalism, which was the world of Europeans, the world of Occidentalists. So what were we doing there? While at the same time, we couldn't be seen as part of this universe. We've been, let's say, excluded. We've been demonized. We've been ill-treated almost every day in Western newspaper or television or whatever it is, social media today. So how can we live in a world that send us a message, that send us a projection of ourselves as people that are no 100% human being, people that could work, produce hard work, produce intellect, produce design things, but often maintain in a position where we are used as just, let's say, I don't know, livestock, where you can come at any time when you need people. You can move to come to Europe to do all the job that nobody wants to do. So um, we start, let's say I start seeing this pattern, and I say to myself, no, this is not on. While doing these studies, I have to do something about it. And I start creating a concept that, first of all, after the study that I was doing on African study, the first concept that I did was that all African, whether in Africa with the Berlin Conference, but we find ourselves today with 44 countries that are completely scattered within the same within the African continent, and we're still struggling to find a way to return after the 1963, what I call the syndrome, the 1963 syndrome that completely transformed Africans by making us a subalternism, a completely land of people that were there to bend in front of colonialism. And that lead us to be today the African that we are, completely displaced, completely lost. We value more what Western present than what we can do ourselves. So you can name them. We've been forced to nationalism because we've been put into boxes called state. You have each person in his little state, and each person forced to act as if he need to protect his state against the other African country. And yet, back in the day, we used to be one single community from one side to another one. Now you find yourself with artificial boundaries, with artificial limitation created by the Conference of Berlin. From there, we start being completely what we are today, completely scattered without any power, because at that time, the leader of the African aftermath of the independence were scared. They were scared to lose the support, to lose the let's say the privilege the colonial forces were presenting. Decades down the line, here we are, and the division didn't end there. The division was made through my studies while trying to think about how to fulfill, how to answer, how to go through my assignment that I was aware, reading Marcus Garvey, reading William Dubois, reading George Padmore, reading John Henry Clark, reading Kwame Nkrumah, reading Cheikh Diop, reading all these scholars, these African scholars' recommendations. I knew that assignment is not somebody that should assign me to start doing them in any program, because any African study program are not promoting, are not leading students to respond to the work left by our forefathers. We wouldn't be here where we are. We would have moved fast, because remembering what all of them requested was that the next generation, the next century, African need to be able to design their own science, because the war, the fight we are entering into is an intellectual fight, is a fight of decolonization. And to be able to win this fight, we need to understand how we've been put into these mental prisons, how these mental structure have been instilled in our mind to the point to guide us to repeat, to recite every single thing that we've been taught by the colonial school, the colonial education. To get out of it, to deconstruct all these concepts, we need to know how these concepts have been created. We need to go to their school and learn to understand, because our freedom will only come through deconstructing the concept that are keeping us today enslaved, are keeping us today in mental imprisonment, which Brother Ngugi Thiong'o called the mind decolonizations. The mind decolonization is the program. Is the program each African intellectual need to work onto to bring about the science that is going to free all our enslaved, all our imprisoned mind. That work, after finishing my first degree in education and community development, I conceive the COAFRWO concept. The COAFRWO concept is the contemporary African world. Just to say the African world, the notion of African world did not exist. It need to be created. And I did it. Through the creation of this concept, there was a need also to start, because that was my journey, to start studying, to start understanding why and how and when and now how do we African are going to free ourselves. I move to go to one of the best school, the number one school on earth in terms of education, the Institute of Education, a branch of UCL in London, to study higher education pedagogy, where I knew I will encounter the technology, the technique, and knowledge about how to design not only courses, but also how to create a science. In 2007, I designed the first concept called Coafrwology, based on contemporary African world studies. And after that, I started to walk into the project to create what will be known as the element supporting this new science that's supposed to be offered to African and African descendants to solve war. I found to be, as a first constant, our existential condition. All of us, African and African descendant. Today, that condition is called the ACAD, or in French, we call it in French, SIADA. In English, it's called ACAD, the existential condition of African and African descendant in the world. It's a concept that I've made observing not only my existence, observing also the existence of my brothers and sisters in my family, observing the existence of my neighbors in my neighborhood, in my village, observing the existence of an entire country, the entire Cameroon, observing the existence of the entire neighborhood of Cameroon, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, then opening myself into reading books about other countries, African countries, till getting into books telling the story, the life of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, in the West Indian, in the Antilles, French Antilles, and elsewhere in Europe, to realize through literature that we were all trapped into the same system that was designed to restrain, to reduce our capacity of development to reach its optimal level. We've been trapped, we've been stopped to be the one doing all the dirty jobs, to work in a factory, to clean elderly people, whatever you can imagine, in nursery home. All the jobs that the Western, the European doesn't want to do were kept for us. And we also came to learn that we being part of massive program of vital energy extraction globally. This is what I call, through my academic scientific work, the ECAD, the existential conditions of African and African descendant in the world. That suggests that it's normal an African that is in Morocco being treated as a trash. It's normal that an African that is in South Africa, his own land, being treated by white people as a trash. It's normal that an African person that is in Europe, in France, in England, still being treated by racism. And racism that is institutionalized. Institutionalized mean that it is there. It is supported by the government. It's recognized by the government, regardless of the fact that the government put some policy, the government put some law to stop it, but it's so powerful that it's still allowed to play, to intimidate, to make African people end up with high cortisol. That element that kind of keep them under permanent stress. When you're in permanent stress, you are programmed not to be intellectually productive. You just use your physics, your hands to produce, and you've been kept to the point where you need to be a genius to be able to create, invent, whatever, while going through a lifestyle of stress that is being programmed, designed for you African people. I've heard it so many times. People saying, oh, why are you complaining about stress? Are you not African? Are you not strong? You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be this. You're supposed to be that. Because you're African. All this need to stop. All this need to change. And wow, we are entering into consciousness. That consciousness is the first step toward our freedom. So after creating this new science called Coafrwology, that is the element that enable those that can understand the mechanism that are governing our existence, now can find how to free themselves by understanding what exactly is going on, what happened in the past, and what is going on in the present. So the notion of COAFRWO is paramount in my work, because I believe that not only Marcus Garvey requested it, he recommended it, but it's the way forward. It's the way forward. It's what we need to do. And while conceiving the COAFRWO, the contemporary African world, I was considering all the African descendants scattered in the world to find a space where they will all be together. Obviously, virtually, because at the time I was doing these studies, where we were also having the revolution, the numeric, the digital revolution with social media. Back in the day, it was MySpace with some other stuff, because I remember posting my first article on MySpace at the time. Yes, it was MySpace. Then things have moved to what we've got today, Facebook. That became one element that was kind of bringing all scattered community together. But before that, there was a work done by Benedict Anderson that really opened up. That was a very, let's say, like an eye opener for me, because I was asking to myself, it's not going to sound anything to try to think that one can create a world, but at least after reading the theory by Benedict Anderson, that was emphasizing the notion of imagination for migrants found themselves trapped in Europe between the nostalgia of returning to their land, the nostalgia of what they've been missing, because while in the country where they found themselves working as whatever slave or whatever, now new migrants that are coming here to work as just economical, based on this economical perspective, they still carry within them their nations. And facing the conflict these migrants were going through, Benedict Anderson, a sociologist, well, decided that it's normal that people in the country where they live, they should move with their entire nation, because they represent their entire nation, their culture, everything with them. This is, well, accepted in a British kind of standpoint, in let's say in a perspective of England. British accept these type of things, but in some European country like France are for assimilation. Assimilation mean you need to delude yourself into the French way of behaving, doing, speaking, dressing. Otherwise, you're in the boss, and people start looking funny at you because you dress like you are coming from the planet Mars. No, French people like uniformity. They want everybody to look in a certain way. They want you to dress as they saw it in Galerie Lafayette, the new season kind of display. This is how you're supposed to be. That's French. And that is not what we taught. It's universalism. And this is how we start seeing universalism as a danger for our humanity. And one of the countries on earth that supported universalism is French. They are French. It's France. But how come will you bring people to come to work as migrant or slave in your country, then you suppress what they've got, the most important, which is their country, their culture, to impose them to live with your culture, even to change their accent while speaking French. This creates alienations. And when people are alienated, they start behaving just like people that are lost. And this is what, well, in some point, all this is acknowledged, is recognized through epistemology as epistemicide. Epistemicide, because people have been empty completely from what is the backbones, their vertebral column that held them, that make them stand as human beings. So we now have, through Coafrwology and COAFRWO, the world COAFRWO, which is composed with ethos, the African territory overseas, like I say, Jamaica, Barbados, you name them, the Caribbean, the French Antillean, Haiti, Latin American, everywhere, even in India with the Sidis community, Bangladesh, all these places, they don't know it, but they are going to be shocked in a couple of years to realize that they are all African descendants. The Renaissance is just started, and the Renaissance won't let anybody aside untorn with the truth. The Renaissance is on the way. The Renaissance just started. And at this point, at this moment, we're just building with what we are considering to be close, approximately in this undisputable African and African descendants. So we've got the slavery. We know very well that, well, there are African people that have been moved to the Caribbean. They were promised that, well, they are going to work, and once they finish working, building whatever they are building, doing the farming and everything, they will be back. But they went. Before you know it, well, people start realizing that these are assets and these are a way to make fortune, to make money. And Europe made fortune toward selling African and African descendant. It's part of this, the history. And through the work I'm doing with Coafrwology, it's history, but it's also geography. Because at the end of the day, my mission is to fulfill the dream of my forefathers. I did some work, I read some books by Professor Paul Gilroy on the Black Atlantics. Indeed, Professor Gilroy wrote a seminal, a paramount book on expressing exactly the problem that our brother in the Caribbean are experiencing today. They are between two worlds, whether they are Africans, whether they are Caribbean. So they almost stuck with a dual identity. But I think there's been a movement, a strong movement, and I want to emphasize, I want to encourage that movement by saying with Coafrwology, we resolve the problem. We resolve the problem because now, while Professor Gilroy was doing his work, Professor Gilroy did not stop to think, first of all, in terms of how are we creating a world whereby we will put back together everything Africa have lost. That's the work that I did, and that's the specificity that make Coafrwology to stand out as a powerful meta, a very standout science offering a solution, offering alternatives for Africans and African descent. Today, there is no way, there's no point for tergiversation, to fiddling, to wondering, to ask yourself, you African, period. Whether mixed with Asian blood, with whatever, you, first of all, African people. And through studying Coafrwology, that is theorizing the notion of first human being emerging from Africa you don't need to ask. You don't need to wonder about, oh, I'm Asian too because my ancestor was Asian. No, first of all, this has been proven by scientific evidence that the first humanity emerged from Africa, which simply mean that the first person to start thinking in Africa. And you know very well, thinking produced the first science. The fact that you think you are creating a science. And African have set the path for all the sciences existing. And today, through Coafrwology, we are going back into all these, let's say, all this work, not to dispute it, but to improve it. Because at the end of the day, we need to come out of the belief that, well, our knowledge have been stolen. If we belong to the same humanity, we need to change our narrative in terms of how we talk about whatever we are presenting as belonging to not just Africans, but our entire humanity. In some occasion, you can say that African creation have been stolen. Yes, indeed. Things like a mask, things like, well, there have been objects created by African that have been taken, stolen. They've been stolen, yes. But when it comes to knowledge, we need to be very, very wise, because through Coafrwology today, we are first of all reclaiming to be the matrix of the universe, the matrix of the pluriverse, the matrix of the humanity, which means that everything come back into control by us African. And the only way we can do that, the only way we could do that is by creating a science, a powerful science that is able to walk into all the science. And that's what Coafrwology is all about. Coafrwology is a multidimensional science designed to question all the science created that are existing, to get an answer that will enable an advancement for our humanity. Because as we study about 15 years ago, when I was still doing my master degree in higher education pedagogy, I was aware, even though my lecturers, most of the program were not emphasizing the fact that the academic and most European institutions were going through a crisis. And that crisis was, well, let's say, portray or call within what was known at that time as a paradigmatical cycle. The world was going through a paradigmatical cycle, but the paradigmatical cycle, looking at it very well, is a state, is a moment of crisis, because paradigm are needs only when the old paradigm are not producing the result that everybody is expecting. So most European paradigm came to their maximal, let's say, expansion, and the tired, the stop, they are not producing what's supposed to be produced any longer. They are now let's say, producing within themselves things that really are not helping anymore the world, that need to expand instead of being amalgamated or imprisoned in concept, in paradigm such as universalism. This is why we're talking about pluralism today. The world is entering in a phase where new knowledge, new paradigm are expected. And the new paradigm that are expected the most are the African experience in a global level. So African are expected now to be able to come out with new paradigm, new sciences, to offer their reading, their interpretation of the world that will open new ways, new dimension, new fields of studies. All this was told to us. We were presented all these possibilities, these opportunities that are going to be what is going to be a part of our job. And I knew it. And I started doing what I knew was my assignment, assigned by Marcus Garvey, assigned by William Dubois, because William Dubois says the next coming centuries are going to be the centuries of feast battle, but battle where you are expecting battle in academic institutions, because it's going to be the battle of knowledge. Africans need to be ready to fight the knowledge battle, and that knowledge battle have started. With Coafrwology, we've got a first step that is reconciling all the sciences through what we call restoration. Coafrwology is a science of restoration. It's the science of order. It's the science of justice. It's the science of what we call the African Renaissance. To being a little bit provocative, but at the same time being honest, being realistic, let's say what universalism in terms of spirituality, in terms of philosophy, called a couple of years ago as the era of the fishes, in reality is the era of the global African Renaissance, because the new paradigm that our earth, our humanity need today are the paradigm coming from the African experience. The African experience that will be converted as the African knowledge. Because the ontology of African that was completely, let's say, kept away from Africans, the epistemology that was kept away from Africans need to be reinstated. And this is a work that Africans need to start doing themselves, because all the schools, all the university program designed by Western university in terms of decolonizations, I don't think so, doesn't produce African PhD in African studies in terms of decolonization that are understanding what they need to do, what they can do to fix the African problem. The fact of the matter is that till the time where I'm talking to you, I'm the only researcher, I'm the only scientist to come out with a constat, to come out with a diagnosis that is called the ACID, the existential condition of African and African descendant. That is the base within which, well, now African will start thinking about the struggle, about the misery, about the poverty. They domesticate it. They embrace because they want to exist. They want to survive. Africans have been forced to accept, to like colonization, to mimic Western politics, to mimic Western whatsoever, dressing code and everything you can imagine. But today, Africa is awakening. Africa is awakening, and we are entering into consciousness, which is the first step toward the freedom. And we see today, after the rupture caused by Ibrahim Traoré, Assimi Goïta, and Abdurrahman Chani, the leaders of the state nation composing today the AAS Confederation. Well, we are seeing President Ibrahim Traoré as the leader of this organization. He is going to be there for 1 year, and we believe in front of the vacuum that Africa kind of is displaying in terms of leadership, we believe that this is the time, this is the right time for you that is watching me, you that is an African descendant, you that is an African, you that in some point feel the struggle of Africa and feel the struggle of Africans, feel the struggle of African descent. To see Ibrahim Traoré as we see him today, not just with the affective capital, not just like the gorgeous guy, the brother that you wish he was yours, you know, no, look at him as somebody that was sent by our ancestor to answer all these years of cries, all these years of struggle, all these years of scattering, all these years. Today, we need to see him as a symbol of bringing us all together, because I can feel how his vibrations are creating the wave that we can feel in the Caribbean, everywhere in the world. But this is what we think is more than, he is more than a president. It is a metaphysical mission. And what is unfolding within the AAS, Alliance of Sahel State, is not simple political transition. In Coafrwology, the science that we're working on, we analyze President Traoré as a resonance pole. He's the vessel for a metaphysical mission, that of restoring the integrity of the land. his strength does not solely from military, does not come solely from military strategy, but from his forces of destabilization. This is where metaphysical path of protection toward all the destabilization is going through. I believe you are aware that once again, he faced an attempt coup to end his life, organized by people from both Burkina Faso that are in exile in neighborhood countries that are there with the support of the neighborhood countries, organizing plots to not only top up President Traoré, but to attend to his life. This is the worst you can hear as a treatise from African people against themselves, just to satisfy the prism of colonial projection. This is what we do. This is what we do best. And it is pretty sad. And we don't today want to see this continuing. So there are no ritual, but a science, a vibratory alignment that we must all master to protect this bastion of our renaissance. The ethos and the affective capital, the blood of the nation community. We need to see ourselves. We need to see each other as people sharing the same bloodline to be able to walk toward this protection. This is where the revolutionary concept of the nation community, the NCA, designed by myself, Professor Mpeke Ntonga Metilame Yodi, come to play, to assist, to support the Confederation in what the Confederation represents today, to solidify its root, to solidify its foundation. We address specifically our brothers and sisters in the ATOS, African territories overseas, from Martinique, from Guadeloupe, from Saint Lucie, from Barbados, from Trinidad and Tobago, from Haiti, from Venezuela, from Cuba, you name them. They are our ethos, African territories overseas. Came out of my scientific work, where the need to redefine Africa was there. And well, today we have that Africa that is trying to regroup all his descendants, all his part in one single vessel. And that vessel is called COAFRWO. And COAFRWO is our project, the NCA, our nation community of African and African descendants, where you carry now the affective capital that you need to address to yourself through what we call the African Renaissance, where we want to bring back a philosophy where we inject some dose of not only doctrine, but self-empathy, because we African descent, we've been steered away for too long. We African in the continent, we've been genocide with borders that have made us seeing each other like strangers, like enemy, like different countries. Today, we need to work on new concepts. We need to work on new project. We need to work on new pedagogical project. We don't need Africans that are transforming themselves in social media to become guru that are there to recite geostrategy, geopolitics without bringing solution. We don't want any more African loaded with Western knowledge that are reciting to us to keep us sleeping, to keep us inactive. We, through Coafrwology, we coming with energyology, a new science. We coming with geostaticology, a new science. We coming with local strategy, a new science to awaken our continent. We coming strong with a new science. There is no way you are going to stay in your state of unconsciousness anymore, because now we are armed. We are seriously armed with a new science that will make the world understand that enough is enough. We can no longer live only on predation. We cannot live any longer on people organizing geostrategic plan to destabilize African. We cannot longer live with Western media pumping messages that are discouraging, that are making young people grow with a sense of fear. Why Africans supposed to live always in this global, this planet with fears? Why? This renaissance is not just for Africans, it's for all our humanity. It's for all our humanity. And it's time that each of you acknowledge what is wrong, what is being done wrong. We want French government to stop harassing Burkina Faso, to stop harassing Mali, to stop harassing Niger, to free the rest of all the African countries that are functioning under the prism of colonial projections. We want Africa to be free. This is why we're coming strong. And the Renaissance is what we're suggesting to you. The philosophy, the self-empathy, because we've been taught for too long to hate ourselves, to reject ourselves, to hate what we're creating, to even hate our own children, to hate even our own parents. All this need to change. Join us. Come to the school. Come to the Coafrwology, and let's rebirth. Let's the Renaissance start making what the Renaissance is supposed to be. Thank you. This is our conference online here on YouTube today. We are on the 13th January 2026. I'm Professor Alphonse Mpeke. The title of this conference was the African Renaissance and the New World Order, focusing on the metaphysical dimension of President Ibrahim Traoré's mission, fluid networks, and the emergence of the nation community. If you feel in your heart the call that we sending here toward this conference, join us. There is an organization, a part of the institute where you will learn about the Renaissance. You will also learn about the new African world order. We also have an international organization taking form everywhere in Europe and in our mother continent. So please, I'm asking for five people that feel like they are capable of leading a group that will set up a branch of our organization in their country, 5 or 7 individuals to become the new ambassador of the African Renaissance where they are. Please, if you feel like this message resonates on you, please contact me. Contact me. I will drop my WhatsApp details with the description of this video conference. So contact us, and from there we will be able to give you further information and what to do to become a link of this network that we're trying to make global. Because in a couple of months we will have important events that are going to take place globally. For now, I would say thank you for watching this conference. Looking forward to see you tomorrow for our next conference that will start at 11 o'clock and will last 2 hours. We're trying to do 2 hours conference to bring information about our organization, but also the teaching that we believe we need to share with you while inviting you to join our classes. One other important detail is that you can join our courses. Our courses are designed according to what you want to study, what you want to do, what you want to have as responsibility within the Renaissance. So contact us now and let's have the ball rolling. Thank you. Now, I just have to say, have a good day and Ubuntu Kama. Bye.